How's it going, Warriors? It's Guru Joe back again. In this second installment in this series, we're covering sport punches, that's boxing, Muay Thai, MMA, versus street self-defense arts like Wing Chun, Jeet Kune Do, and Filipino Kali. So today we're going to examine the cross. So the right cross, when delivered properly from the same guard we talked about with the jab, should start the motion from the feet, move into the hip. And now, if you can see what's happening, my elbow is in front of my rib cage. And now I'm going to fire that punch, continue to turn my hip, and the shoulder is going to cover the jaw just like the jab. One of the reasons I highlight that is because a lot of times when people just, see good material on YouTube and they try to replicate it, people come into the academy here and they're, I know how to punch already. And when they throw the cross, they will raise the elbow. A lot of times we'll do that on the jab too. And the reason we do that is because we naturally feel like we have more power when we bench press. And the first day you arrive at the academy, if you start a boxing lesson somewhere, whether it's your local community gym or it's at an MMA academy like this one, that might be true. You might have more power when you bench press. But it also tremendously leaves you open, and it telegraphs the move, because human beings, after centuries and centuries of combat, this is sort of the universal signal for, I'm going to punch you. And so an educated person particularly will be able to evade that punch. They'll be able to counter. They'll be able to use some defense to stop it very, very easily. The other thing is you actually will develop much more power if you keep the elbow in, because it's not so much the arm, but it's the leg work. It's the sitting down. It's starting from the feet to turn the hip. And now it's the elbow firing right from the hip. So there's no telegraph to it. It's a nice straight line. As the old saying goes, the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. So we don't want to always curve it. We could go into discussing the overhand, but we'll save that for another video. That's a variation on a type of cross. Many people consider it a cross, or they'll use it for low cross. But a straight line punch, which originally, it was always called a rear straight, or if you're in orthodox stance, it means you're right-handed, it was called a straight right. Shoot! The name cross became a shorthand nickname, and it was only used, and you can find this in what's called the Naval Boxing Academy Manual. They just reprinted it in hardcover, actually, on Amazon. I don't think it's on Kindle, but the Navy developed a boxing manual back in the 1930s, late 1920s, after World War I, and the material is still modern. You'll see all the stances in there. You'll see footworks that we still use today, defenses, drills even. It's a really good resource if you want to look that up. But the name cross came out of when someone threw a jab and you slip to the outside and your right hand would cross over the jab, or you slip to the inside and it would cross over. But nowadays, everybody refers to the straight right as like, whoa, nice right cross there, a nice cross that they threw. And so that's the punch. So we talked this about in the jab video, but in case you weren't with us, let's compare glove sports with street self-defense. So in the glove, regardless of the sport that you're doing, you always want to aim with the pointer knuckle, and you want to aim with the middle knuckle. So if you're going to hit the bag barehanded, which I don't recommend you do too often because of arthritis, if you do, go a little bit lighter. I'm going to aim with those knuckles on any punch I throw, whether it's an uppercut, whether it's a hook, whether it's a straight, whether I hit vertically or I hit horizontally. Okay, vertically, sometimes the impact will find the lower portion of the hand, but it's still more common to hit with the top. Like if I throw a hook, I want to emphasize these right here. Okay, on this in a glove, especially if you're in a sport, you're going to wear a hand wrap. And that hand wrap, I kid you not, if you've never put one on, and it's different with tape and gauze than it is with a cotton hand wrap. When you're competing and you use the tape and gauze, your hands just feel like bricks, like you could just hit through walls very, very easily. So what do you aim at with your cross is the nose and mouth area, because it's the center line. It's going to give you the most coverage, and you're going to pop that head back. And honestly, it hurts. It hurts to get punched in the teeth, even if you're wearing a mouthpiece. It always hurts to get punched in the nose. Sometimes even you're wearing headgear, but that nose is still like a little bit exposed, it is no fun. On the street, you can aim at the nose, but you got to have good aim. You don't really want to aim at the teeth because you could hit the bone of the chin. You could also run into the bones of the teeth, get that in your hand. It can really hurt. So a lot of times on the street, just like the jab I was talking about, the hands are more side by side because we want to aim at the soft tissue of the cheek. Okay, and just like the jab, if I'm not wearing a glove and I'm accosted somewhere, like in a parking lot or a back alley, I could use my right cross as a finger jab. And one of the benefits of this that we didn't discuss with the jab is, see, if you look here, I'm out of range. I'm totally followed through, and I cannot hit the bag. But if I use a finger jab, it gives me just a little more extension. And your targets for that are going to be the eye. They're going to be the throat if you can land it. And sometimes it's going to be a distraction so that you can follow up with another kick. And that's more of the JKD and the Kali perspective. Obviously, you're not going to finger jab in a glove, and even in MMA, they have long since taken the finger jab out. In the beginning, they didn't have that rule, so finger in the eye, UFC #1, the fight would carry on. Nobody would be disqualified for it, but those were unique times. But so the finger jab is a very, very valid tool. The other thing that it can do is if my hands are up and I'm kind of like, hey, gesturing here, I don't want any trouble. Hey, what's your problem? It can surprise somebody and it can hit down. And even if it doesn't land, it can start to become like a cover or like a slide punch. Now, you may have seen in Wing Chun that we sometimes go with a vertical fist this way. And I'm going to repeat myself a little bit because we covered this on the jab video because they're just both straight punches. The vertical fist has to do with proximity to the person. So it's a range thing. So when I have good extension, perfect room, maybe I step into it, boom, the cross can come out. When I'm closer, look what's going to happen if I try to take that step. Now my punch is smothered. So unless you're in the sweet spot, think about hitting a home run in baseball. You're not going to have the same power delivery that you have unless you can get the finishing motion, right? If I bunt, I'm going to come up short. If I hit the very tip of the bat, I'm going to have lack of control, lack of power. So if I'm too far away, cross is going to be weak. If I'm too close, same problem. The cross is going to be weak. So you have to know your range and know where you can follow through. Bruce Lee talked about in 1964, still true today, you want to travel 4 to 6 inches behind the intended target. Now, a couple weeks ago, I did a bag video on how to hit the heavy bag, and I talked about exactly that. So if that's kind of new to you, maybe go back and watch that clip. But with the vertical fist, what we're considering is somebody either has a hold of you, or maybe you're just backed against a wall. Maybe you're in an elevator. Maybe you're on an airplane. You can't get off the straight punch. You don't have room to do your footwork. You don't have room to turn the shoulder and the hip. So we're smothered a little bit. That's when the vertical punch is deployed. It's not a secret weapon. It's not a preference of like, oh, we're JKD, so we're always going to use the vertical fist. It comes back to what are the rules and what are the tools. And so your environment will make a difference. And like the ring is one environment, but then the airplane that I talked about a second ago, the grocery store, a swimming pool, the beach, the desert, the mountain, those can all be different environments. Are you on flat ground or are you on hilly terrain, right? An elevator is going to be a much different situation than a boxing ring. For one, maybe it's 2-on-1. Who knows, right? So if somebody is tight to me, I can go with a vertical fist. Now, we train it that way, but it is assumed that it's going to be an eye gouge or it's going to hit the throat down the center because, again, I don't want to hit the bottom of the chin. Sometimes we'll turn it like 45s this way. And that the goal on that is actually to come under the throat, almost like a little uppercut, but it's going forward. Okay, we're not at the uppercut yet. We will get there. The other thing that proximity does for you, when somebody is closer to you, you don't need to have as high of a guard. So think about Muay Thai, right? I'll do like a movie approach, right? But in general, the hands are eye level, right? That's because the kick could come in. In boxing, I don't have to worry about it, so my hands can be low. In MMA, we worry about the takedown, so the hands will be more center line and the body might be a little bit lower. And in Muay Thai, we're only considering kickboxing or like French savate. So the hands are can be upright. Okay. In boxing, most people won't aim at the top of your head. They're going to try to aim at your jawline, your top row of teeth, your nose that we talked about earlier. But in kickboxing, they might kick you on the crown of the head and it will cause a knockout. I've been knocked down that way one time. It was interesting. It was a glancing blow. I moved out of the way. It still clipped me. I felt fine. And then, woohoo, I didn't feel fine and I had to recover. So ranges make a difference. So the closer you get, the lower the hands can be because the proximity to the person will start to defend your face, right? So if I'm in tight, maybe my hands come down. Think about grappling. My hands can come down all the way to the waist, but I'm actually in a safe position because it's much harder to deliver punches. The other thing we need to consider is when we're very close, another opportunity we have is body shots. So our elbows actually need to become a little bit lower to manage those hands that might hit us around the midsection. If I'm this close, it's going to be easy to stop people trying to hit my face. And all I'm saying is that is where the vertical fist comes in. We're a little bit closer. Our range isn't right for a cross. Our shoulder would be smothered, right? So we're going to use that space. It might only take one shot. That might be to the solar plexus. Oof. That might move somebody out. So now, oh, maybe I hook, and now the next shot, I have some distance to throw my cross, the punch that I really want to deliver. So the Jeet Kune Do was never really considered a knockout shot, although Bruce Lee apparently could make it one with his 1-inch punch. For most of us, it's a range separator. It's when people get too close, boom, 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 couple shots, or like I'm standing here, the person is here, you're just going to go to the throat and have the same elbow position as if I threw that vertical fist. Okay? But finger jabs, hitting to the solar plexus, grabbing the ear, going to the eye, hitting the throat, extremely valid tools. And if you go back to UFC 1, some of these things were in there. You could hit to the throat. Finger jab, the ref would maybe say, hey, watch the eye. They wouldn't interrupt you. They would just let you keep going. But as people got injured, they gradually, oh, there's an injury, let's change the rules. Just like a couple of years ago, you could hit a man who was down on 3 points, you could still knee him. Then they said, oh, you know what? You can't knee to the head anymore. It's too dangerous. You have to knee to the body. Then people were still getting hurt with that. Okay, you can't knee a downed opponent anymore. Now you can only use the elbow and you can only use your fist. So what happens with sports is we tend to move closer and closer to what we can do that's the absolute safest and sort of keep the simulation of the combat there, although we're moving towards more of an athletic sport that's for longevity. These athletes aren't going to be hurt in their later years, totally broken. No one's going to have a lethal injury while doing the sport. But on the street, you got to protect yourself. Your main goal is to get home safely. So that's why we can deploy other tools. The straight line, I talked about the finger jab coming down. That could be a grab to the hair to pull somebody. But it's still the same structure right down the middle. So really in Jeet Kune Do and Kali, there's no difference. You're still going to throw a right cross all the time. You're going to use a jab. But you're also going to have other tools to use. You're going to use the vertical fist. You're going to use the finger jab. You're going to hit the solar plexus, although I think those are all good ideas. All right, so that's kind of the corollary, the contrast between how we use a right cross in a glove sport and how we're going to deploy it for self-defense in other methods like Wing Chun, Jeet Kune Do, that kind of thing. All right, thanks again, Warriors. Coming up, I'm going to put 2 curved punches together. We're going to talk about the hook and the uppercut in the next installment. Stay with us. We'll be back soon.